world on the brink. What would you do if, in the space of mere days, the world teetered on the edge of nuclear catastrophe? This is not fiction. It's June 2025, and hidden in the pre-dawn stillness of the skies, a game of shadows and steel threatens to reshape global history. Stay with me. In the next moments, you'll witness how stealth bombers, bunker-busting behemoths, and the highest-stakes diplomacy danced on a knife's edge to avert what could have been humanity's darkest hour. Origins, seeds of tension between Iran and Israel trace back decades to historic territorial disputes and ideological clashes. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Tehran has viewed Israel as an adversary, supporting proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel, perceiving Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat, has repeatedly undertaken covert operations from cyber attacks like Stuxnet to targeted strikes aimed at stalling Iran's uranium enrichment. These shadow wars simmered beneath diplomatic noise, punctuated by sanctions, UN resolutions, and regional power plays. Context: the spark and the stakes in early June. A sudden exchange of rocket fire between Iran and Israel sent shockwaves through international corridors of power. Israeli air defenses intercepted several medium-range missiles launched in response to a covert sabotage operation deep within Iranian territory. Iran, alleging an assassination attempt on senior nuclear scientists, retaliated with surface-to-surface rockets targeting military installations across northern Israel. President Trump swiftly labeled the episode the 12-Day War, framing it as a crucible that could determine the balance of power in the Middle East, or plunge the world into a catastrophic spiral. As tensions skyrocketed, intelligence reports warned of Iran's advancing uranium enrichment timeline at Fordo and Natanz. Western diplomats feared Tehran might cross an irreversible threshold, securing a breakout capacity for a nuclear weapon. In this precarious backdrop, the US military and Trump administration devised a plan to deliver a decisive blow: deep strikes on fortified uranium depots, coupled with an intricate diplomatic gambit to forestall all-out war. Part 1. The sky on alert. Imagine a June dawn when the entire world held its breath. It wasn't an eclipse or a solar storm, but something far more silent and lethal. A squadron of stealth B-2 Spirit bombers lifting off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, defying distance and uncertainty. Their mission: to annihilate underground caches of enriched uranium in Iran, intended to fuel a nuclear program that threatened to destabilize the entire region. President Donald J. Trump had dubiously dubbed the episode the 12-Day War, a lightning conflict ignited by rocket strikes on Israeli facilities and a mutual drone downing. At the peak of that escalation, the Pentagon made its boldest call in a decade: dispatched the B-2 squadron on a deep penetration mission, far beyond the sweep of conventional radars, to staunch any temptation to cross the red line. Strategic design. Operation unfolded in 2 acts: a daring decoy and a precision strike. To distract Iran's air defenses, a pair of B-2s executed loitering maneuvers over the Gulf of Mexico, mimicking routine training flights. They broadcast false electronic signatures, simulating reconnaissance sorties, while the true strike force charted a high-altitude transcontinental approach. The stealth bomber, with its distinctive triangular profile and radar-absorbent coating, slipped through most surveillance nets undetected. Meanwhile, a volley of Tomahawk cruise missiles and MQ-9 Reaper drones punched small gaps in outer defense rings, blinding secondary radars and thermal cameras, paving the way for the main assault. The BBB munition, GBU-57A, be known as the most powerful bunker buster in the US arsenal. The GBU-57A, BOR, Massive Ordnance Penetrator, MOP, nicknamed Big Ben or BBB, weighs 30,000 pounds and is engineered to penetrate up to 200 feet of reinforced concrete. Its aerodynamic casing and modular fortitude motor allow it to breach deeply buried targets. Each B-2 carried a pair of these bombs in internal bays, maintaining a low radar signature. Precision was paramount. A mere 20-foot miss could render the strike ineffective. Thus, each MOP was equipped with dual-spectrum GPS and a laser altimeter, ensuring detonation precisely atop the concrete barrier. Timeline of the decisive night. Day 1, June 13th, 22 o'clock GMT5, silent takeoff, 2 B-2 south and 4 KC-135 tankers depart. Whiteman mid-air refueling commences over Kansas and New Mexico. Day 2, June 14th, 3 o'clock GMT5, Atlantic crossing. Crews execute course deviations to evade Russian AWACS detection. Encrypted communications link directly to the White House. Day 2, June 14th, 17 o'clock GMT5, Gulf of Mexico decoy. For additional B2S, simulate low-altitude runs, deploying electronic countermeasures. Day 3, June 15th, 2 o'clock GMT5, final ingress. Original B2S breach Iranian airspace, caught briefly by low-frequency radars. Mission Control authorizes bomb release. Day 3, June 15th, 2:15 GMT5, impact. Each MOP shatters layers of rock and concrete, demolishing key caches at Fordo and Natanz. Isfahan silos sustain surface damage. Day 3, June 15th, 3 o'clock GMT5, withdrawal. With no losses, the squadron retreats, using maritime decoys and evasive routing. This opening strike crippled roughly 40% of Iran's fissile uranium stockpile. Intelligence estimates concluded, forcing Tehran to rebuild its enrichment chain from scratch. Shadows, speakers, subterranean car booms echoed. Diplomats in Doha and Jerusalem began repositioning their pieces. A mediation team led by President Trump and Qatar's Emir raced to secure a ceasefire before Iran could retaliate with longer-range rockets or crippling cyber attacks. In Jerusalem's war rooms, cautionary voices warned this could be relief or the calm before a worse storm. Military analysts contended that striking Bush's reactor would cross an inviolable threshold, inviting massive reprisals. A world holding its breath at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Envoys renewed pleas for restraint. They spoke of a nuclear roller coaster that had lasted only days but would reverberate for years. In Tehran, residents reported faint tremors. Hospitals treated blunt trauma injuries from concrete debris. Iranian state media blamed Western aggressors, while urban youths, tweeting under pseudonyms, decried military spending amid domestic hardship. Part 2. From diplomacy's brink to global ripples. As the dawn of peace negotiations crept in, back-channel communications hummed through secure lines. President Trump, having flipped the switch from striking to mediating, tapped a private liaison with Qatar's Emir in Doha, now ground zero for discreet shuttle diplomacy. Within 24 hours of the MOP explosion, Tehran and Jerusalem emissaries hashed out ceasefire terms as fragile as desert glass. Walking the diplomatic tightrope, key stipulations emerged. Iran would suspend uranium enrichment at Fordo for 6 months. In return, the US would withdraw additional B-52 and F-35 deployments from the Persian Gulf. Israel pledged to halt reconnaissance sorties along its northern frontier. Qatar's intelligence service deployed remote centrifuge monitors, streaming live feeds to the IAEA in Vienna for verification. Economic shockwaves, markets convulsed. Brent crude spiked 6% to flirt with $85 per barrel before easing to $78 amid de-escalation hopes. Shipping companies rerouted vessels around the Strait of Hormuz, tacking days onto delivery schedules. The Nikkei and DAX indices slid 1.2% and 0.9%, respectively, as investors braced for a broader crisis. In Tehran, the rial collapsed to a 3-year low, prompting emergency currency swaps by the central bank. Mass protests erupted outside the energy ministry. Chants of "our wealth, stolen for war," echoing through the square in anguished rebuke of national priorities. Invisible perils, radiological fallout. Beneath the tactical success lurked unseen hazards. When a MOP shards deep underground, it can disperse uranium hexafluoride particulates. Geiger counters at Fordo registered spikes up to 200 sieverts per hour levels, necessitating immediate evacuation. Hazmat-clad crews conducted soil assays to prevent groundwater contamination, staving off fears of a Chernobyl-scale plume. Albeit on a much smaller scale, international health agencies dispatched experts to Tehran, advising a temporary relocation of agricultural and veterinary labs within a 5-kilometer radius. Commercial satellite imagery later revealed a faint dust haze at dawn, a spectral reminder of the unseen environmental toll. Geopolitical aftershocks. The ceasefire endured, for now, yet mistrust lingered like embers in a smoldering fire. Moscow and Beijing decried the strikes as sovereignty violations. calling for a revival of the 2015 nuclear accord. Washington's hawks pressed for a permanent enrichment ban. Its doves warned of fueling anti-American fervor across the region. Israel, wary of an emboldened Iran, accelerated expansion of civilian bomb shelters and broadened its national homefront drills. Tehran, in turn, deepened ties with Hezbollah and Houthi factions, signaling a shift toward asymmetric proxies if direct conflict proved too costly. Closing. Reflections. A precarious peace. The 12-day war had indeed skirted a wider conflagration, but at a sobering price. Precision ordnance and rapid-fire diplomacy averted a regional meltdown, yet the seeds of future strife lay buried in radioactive soil and economic discontent. In classified briefings, officials echoed a haunting refrain: "We bought time, not trust." In the hush of critical backrooms and war councils, that distinction may yet determine whether this ceasefire endures or the next spark ignites.